Tonight, we are continuing to follow the massive fire and evacuations in Brunswick. Good evening to you. I'm Destiny McKeever. Right now, the Brunswick Fire Department says the fire is out and there are no injuries. The shelter in place and evacuation orders have now been lifted. We're checking in now with On Your Side Zach Wilcox in a few minutes. He is at Howard Coffin Park, where the Red Cross is helping people who have evacuated. But first, we want to take a look at how things went down today. 16 hours ago, 7 a.m. is when the fire was first reported at the Pinova manufacturing plant. The senior operations director of Pinova tells us that initial fire was in the terpene resins unit. That's basically materials used in glue and some food products. 90 minutes later, the fire was under control, and at the time, there were no injuries to report. Then 8 hours after the fire was declared under control, around 3 p.m., the fire reignited. At first, there was a shelter in place for surrounding areas, which was then upgraded to an evacuation order. Now, fast forward to now, dozens of displaced people living in the evacuation zone are able to go home, and the Red Cross set up a temporary shelter to help those people out. That's where we find On Your Side's Zach Wilcox. Zach, we just found out within the last 30 minutes that evacuation order has been lifted.
Yeah, Destiny, what a long day here. Long day turned into a long night for the first responders in the Brunswick area and for folks living nearby as we had that evacuation order, the shelter in place. I tell you what, the only common thing throughout the day was seeing the smoke billowing out of that factory, as otherwise everything around it, we saw the sirens, we saw the police lights, the fire ambulance lights, and the fire truck lights, and we saw folks coming here. It's a little quieter here now, as a lot of folks have, as you mentioned, gone back home. We saw a couple of dozen that made their way to the shelter tonight, and then, you know, kind of regrouped there, stayed here for a little bit. Now they're heading back home, where fortunately they'll be able to sleep in their beds at home tonight. But I talked with a few of those folks just about what the experience was like seeing that smoke. I tell you what, I could see it from 20 miles away on I-95 billowing up. It was almost like a purple cloud there. So I could only imagine what it was like being right underneath it. The closest we ever got was probably between a half a mile and a mile away, where you could still see it then. So it's talking to folks about what it was like being right underneath that plume.
We heard a big boom. My house was shaking. And we looked out the window, and there was a big fire, like going in the sky.
Barbara Otterer Brockman and Alice Norman left their house to find commotion in the streets, with a massive fire and smoke billowing out of the chemical plant across the street. They felt it, they could see it, and another neighbor, Ethel Stanley, says she could even smell and taste it.
I didn't know what's going on, because they was coughing, and when they all said they, taste like it was chlorine and stuff, I'm like, oh boy.
Fire departments from Brunswick, Jacksonville, Savannah, and all around the area filled the city, as everyone within a half a mile of the plant, like Barbara, Alice, and Ethel, were asked to evacuate. Brunswick's assistant fire chief says they greeted the fire with foam.
Flames are contained and under control due to the foam operations, and we're going to continue those operations until the scene is completely controlled.
Stanley is glad she and her 4 grandchildren are okay.
To me, it was really devastating. My nerves are still shocked from this morning, from running.
Now, I will say a few of the folks that we talked to here at the shelter were a little frustrated that they found out that they needed to evacuate around 3 o'clock, and then it wasn't until 9 o'clock they saw the shelter open, and then by about 10:15 they were told they could go back home. So they're hoping that it could be streamlined a little more for future emergencies, especially hurricanes, so there's not that 6 hours of trying to figure out what they need to do, waiting in their cars, trying to figure out where they need to go. And also, a lot of folks mentioned that they are concerned about what this means for the air quality here. We saw a lot of folks wearing masks today. I will say that the spokesperson for the county mentioned that there isn't at this point any concern for public safety, but we'll just have to see and follow along to see if that is the case as we learn more about this fire. In Brunswick, Zach Wilcox, First Coast News, On Your Side.